There was a man who woke up every morning with the same heavy feeling in his chest. Not because he was sick, not because he had nothing, but because he had stopped listening to himself. His alarm rang, his feet hit the floor, and his soul stayed in bed. Day after day. Year after year. From the outside, everything looked fine. Responsibilities handled, bills paid, smiles given. But inside, there was a quiet storm, the kind no one hears but you. The kind that whispers, this is not the life you were meant to live. Misery doesn't always shout. Sometimes it sits politely in your routine. It hides inside, I'm okay. It survives on postpone. I'll be happy later. I'll change later. I'll start later. But later is the favorite hiding place of regret. One morning, something different happened. Not dramatic, not loud, just honest. He sat on the edge of his bed and asked himself one question, a question he had avoided for years. If nothing changes, will I be proud of my life 5 years from now? And for the first time, he didn't run from the answer. Truth has power when you stop negotiating with it. In that moment, he didn't need a new job, a new house, or a new identity. He needed courage for 5 minutes of radical honesty, 5 minutes of silence. 5 minutes of choosing not to lie to himself. Change rarely begins with a giant leap. It begins with a decision. A decision that says my peace matters, my purpose matters, my life matters. He wrote down 3 things he knew were draining him. He wrote down 3 things that made him feel alive. And he promised, not the world, but himself, that he would take one small action that day toward what gave him life. That was it. No fireworks, no applause, just alignment. You see, transformation is not always about adding more. Often it's about removing what is false. The false expectations, the borrowed dreams, the inherited fears. When you stop living someone else's script, your real story begins. Many people are not tired, they are misaligned. Many people are not broken, they are disconnected. The distance between misery and meaning is often just awareness plus action. You don't need permission to begin again. You don't need approval to honor your truth. You don't need to wait for a crisis to choose yourself. 5 minutes of truth can interrupt 5 years of autopilot. So if you woke up this morning feeling that quiet heaviness, don't ignore it. Sit with it, ask the real question, listen without defense. Then take one brave step, however small, toward what feels real. Because your life is too precious to be lived on mute, most people believe misery arrives like a storm, loud, visible, undeniable. But in reality, the most dangerous kind of unhappiness does not crash into your life. It quietly settles into your routine, blends into your schedule. It wears the disguise of normal, and because of that, it goes undetected for years. Disaster is obvious, routine, misery is invisible, and what is invisible is rarely challenged. When disaster strikes, people react, they seek help, they change direction, they rebuild. But when dissatisfaction becomes routine, people adapt instead of acting. They normalize emotional fatigue. They call burnout responsibility. They call emptiness maturity, and they call resignation stability. The human mind is incredibly skilled at adjusting to discomfort when that discomfort repeats daily. Routine misery looks like waking up tired even after sleeping, feeling unmotivated without knowing why, losing excitement, things that once mattered, speaking less about dreams and more about obligations, counting days instead of creating them, scrolling endlessly to escape your own thoughts, laughing socially, but feeling emotionally distant. Nothing is dramatically wrong, yet nothing feels deeply right. The trap is familiarity, because what repeats feels safe even when it hurts. A predictable pain often feels less threatening than an unpredictable possibility. So people stay in jobs that shrink them, relationships that silence them, environments that drain them, habits that numb them, not because they enjoy them, but because we recognize them. Familiar discomfort becomes preferred over unfamiliar growth. Another reason routine misery survives is social validation. If everyone around you is also tired, stressed, uninspired, and emotionally flat, your condition feels normal. When collective burnout becomes culture, awareness disappears. You stop asking, am I fulfilled? And start asking, am I keeping up? That is a dangerous shift because survival replaces purpose. Routine misery also speaks softly. It doesn't shout like crisis. It whispers through boredom, irritation, procrastination, and low energy. It shows up as constant distraction, emotional eating, unnecessary arguments, and endless postponement of personal goals. These are not random flaws. They are signals that something inside is unexpressed, unheard, or misaligned. People often wait for breakdown before they allow breakthrough, but wisdom listens before collapse. You don't have to hit rock bottom to admit something is wrong. Awareness is allowed at any stage. Permission to change does not require tragedy. Another hidden feature of routine misery is performance. Many people function well while feeling empty. They deliver results, meet deadlines, handle duties, and appear reliable. Performance hides pain very effectively. The world rewards output, not inner alignment. So high-functioning misery often receives praise, which makes it even harder to question. There is also the illusion of later. Later I will rest. Later I will pursue meaning. Later I will reconnect with myself. Later I will live fully. But later is often a delay mechanism powered by fear. When later becomes a habit, life becomes a waiting room. The solution begins with interruption. Small interruptions of awareness, asking better questions, noticing emotional patterns, tracking energy instead of only time, observing what drains versus what gives strength. Change rarely begins with quitting everything. It begins with noticing honestly. You must learn to audit your routine, your mornings, your conversations, your work rhythm, your emotional reactions. Ask, does this pattern build me or reduce me? Does this habit expand me or numb me? Does this environment support me or silence me? A misery that hides in routine survives on autopilot. The moment you become conscious, it loses its camouflage. Awareness is the alarm clock the soul has been trying for years. And once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Most people try to change their lives by changing their circumstances, their jobs, their relationships, their locations, their schedules, but real transformation rarely begins outside. It begins with a question asked inside, a question that is honest, direct, and uncomfortable. Honest self-questioning is powerful because it removes illusion, it interrupts denial, and it exposes truth without decoration. Many avoid self-questioning because it feels risky. When you ask yourself real questions, you may not like the answers. You may discover you are living by expectation instead of desire, fear instead of purpose, habit instead of intention. But avoidance does not protect your life. It only delays your growth. The questions you refuse to ask become the walls you cannot see. Most people ask surface questions like, how can I be more successful? Or how can I make more money? But transformation questions go deeper. They sound like, why am I chasing this? Who am I trying to impress? What am I afraid to admit? Where am I betraying myself daily? What truth have I been negotiating with? These questions don't just improve performance, they reshape direction. Honest questions create internal clarity, and clarity creates decisive action. Confusion keeps people stuck. Clarity moves them forward. When you clearly see that something is misaligned, draining, or false, you stop defending it. Awareness reduces tolerance for self-deception. You cannot knowingly continue what you clearly understand is hurting your spirit, at least not without inner conflict. Self-questioning also breaks autopilot. Much of human behavior runs on repeated scripts, inherited beliefs, cultural conditioning, and old emotional programming. Without questioning, you live recycled patterns. With questioning, you examine the script. You ask, is this belief even mine? Did I choose this path consciously? Do I still agree with the person I was when I made this decision? That is how mental freedom begins. Another strength of honest questioning is emotional accuracy. Many people label their feelings incorrectly. They say they are lazy when they are actually discouraged. They say they are bored when they are actually unchallenged. They say they are fine when they are actually afraid. The right question reveals the right emotion, and the right emotion reveals the right solution. Honest self questions also expose hidden desires. Deep down, many people already know what they want to change, start, stop, or pursue, but they silence that knowledge because it demands courage. Questions give that inner voice permission to speak. When you ask quietly and listen patiently, truth answers. Transformation often begins in private moments. A notebook, a silent walk, a still morning, 5 uninterrupted minutes. No audience, no performance, no social approval, just reflection. Questions written are more powerful than questions thought because written truth is harder to escape. When you see your own answers in front of you, denial weakens. There is also a discipline to self-questioning. It must be compassionate, not cruel. The goal is awareness, not self-attack. Ask to understand, not to shame. Growth happens faster in honesty plus kindness than honesty plus judgment. You are investigating your life, not prosecuting yourself. Powerful self-questions are specific, repeated, and action-oriented. Not just what's wrong, but what exactly is draining my energy daily? Not just what do I want, but what small step can I take this week? Not just why am I unhappy, but where am I out of alignment? Precision produces progress. The moment you answer truthfully, responsibility appears. You can no longer say, I don't know. Awareness creates choice, and choice creates accountability. That is why questions transform. They move you from passive living to conscious living. A single honest question answered without excuse. It can redirect years of misplaced effort. It can end pretending, restart dreaming, rebuild boundaries, and restore purpose. Questions are not weak, they are catalytic. They open doors denial keeps locked. Ask better questions more often, more quietly, more truthfully, and transformation stops being an idea and starts becoming your reality, one answer at a time. Most people are trained to manage appearance before they understand alignment. They learn how to look successful before they learn how to feel fulfilled. They learn how to impress others before they learn how to understand themselves. Appearance is public, alignment is personal, and confusing the two creates a life that looks right the outside from but feels wrong on the inside. Appearance is about image, status, titles, and presentation. It is what people see, what they praise, what they measure. Alignment is about values, truth, energy, and inner congruence. It is what you feel, what guides you, what sustains you when nobody is watching. A person can master appearance and still feel empty, but when alignment is strong, even small achievements feel meaningful. The danger of living for appearance is that it depends on external approval. You begin to build your choices around applause, validation, and comparison. Decisions become performance-based instead of purpose-based. You choose careers to look impressive, relationships to look stable, lifestyles to look admirable, and slowly, without noticing, you become a stranger to your own needs. Alignment asks different questions. Not how does this make me look, but how does this make me feel? Not will they approve, but is this true for me? Not is this popular, but is this honest? These questions protect your inner direction. They keep you connected to your core instead of the crowd. When alignment is missing, friction appears everywhere. Simple tasks feel heavy, motivation feels forced. Rest does not restore energy. Success feels strangely unsatisfying. This is not laziness, this is misalignment. Your mind may agree with your path, but your deeper self resists it. Inner resistance is a signal, not a weakness. Many people override that signal for years. They say, This is practical. This is expected. This is secure. And while those things matter, they are not enough alone. Security without meaning becomes a cage. Achievement without alignment becomes exhaustion. Recognition without authenticity becomes pressure. Alignment does not mean everything is easy. It means everything is honest. Hard work can still feel right when it serves your values. Sacrifice can still feel purposeful when it supports your truth. Difficulty is not the opposite of alignment. Emptiness is. You can be tired and aligned, but you cannot be fulfilled and misaligned. Another truth is that alignment is dynamic, not fixed. What matched you 5 years ago may not match you now. Growth changes preferences, priorities, and passions. That is why regular self-check is necessary. You must ask, does this still represent who I am becoming? Not just, did this represent who I was? Updating your direction is maturity, not inconsistency. Appearance pressures are amplified by comparison culture. Constant exposure to other people's highlights creates artificial standards. You begin adjusting your life to compete with images, not to honor your reality. Alignment breaks that cycle. It returns authority inward. It says your path is not required to look like anyone else's to be valid. Living aligned also improves decision quality. Choices become clearer because filters become stronger. When values are defined, options reduce. You stop chasing everything and start choosing selectively. Focus increases, regret decreases, and energy concentrates. Alignment also strengthens resilience. When you know why you are doing something, endurance increases. Purpose carries weight better than pressure. You recover faster from setbacks because your direction is internally chosen, not externally assigned. Importantly, alignment often requires invisible courage. Sometimes it means disappointing people, changing direction, saying no, starting late, or walking away quietly. These moves may not look impressive immediately, but they protect long-term integrity. Short-term appearance may drop while long-term fulfillment rises. A well-aligned life may not always look glamorous, but it feels grounded, steady, and alive. You sleep with less conflict. You act with less pretending. You speak with less fear. There is coherence between your thoughts, words, and actions, and that coherence is peace. In the end, appearance convinces others, alignment convinces you, and your inner conviction is the foundation that sustains every meaningful transformation, every lasting success, and every genuine sense of joy. Many people fall in love with big plans, detailed strategies, perfect systems, and future milestones, but they underestimate the life-changing power of small actions taken immediately. Grand plans are emotionally exciting. They create a sense of movement without requiring movement. They feel productive even when nothing has started. Small actions, however, are less glamorous, less visible, less celebrated. Yet they are the true engines of transformation. A delayed big plan often becomes a comfortable illusion. You tell yourself you will begin when conditions improve, when you feel more confident, when you have more time, more money, more clarity, more support. But delay quietly turns intention into habit, and habit turns postponement into identity. You become someone who plans instead of someone who starts. Immediate small action breaks that cycle. It converts thought into motion and motion into momentum. Momentum is more important than motivation because motivation fluctuates, but momentum builds. Once you take one step, the next step becomes easier, not because the path changed, but because you changed. You became active instead of passive. Small actions reduce psychological resistance. The brain fears large change. It interprets it as risk, uncertainty, and possible failure. But a tiny step feels safe, manageable, non-threatening. Writing one paragraph instead of a book, walking 10 minutes instead of running a marathon, making one phone call instead of redesigning your whole career. These are doors the mind is willing to open. Another strength of immediate small action is feedback. When you act quickly on a small scale, you learn quickly on a small scale. You discover what works, what doesn't, what needs adjustment. Big delayed plans often fail because they are built built in imagination, not reality. Small, fast actions are tested in reality, and reality gives accurate data. Perfectionism is one of the biggest enemies of immediate action. It says wait until it is flawless, complete, impressive. But perfectionism often hides fear of judgment, fear of mistakes, fear of being seen trying. Small, imperfect action defeats perfectionism by proving progress matters more than polish. Done teaches more than planned. Consistency grows from small, repeatable behaviors, not rare, heroic efforts. Drinking water daily matters more than one extreme health week. Saving small amounts regularly matters more than one dramatic financial decision. Practicing a skill briefly every day matters more than one long session once a month. Repetition shapes identity. What you do often defines you more than what you do intensely once. Immediate action also builds self-trust. Every time you act on a decision quickly, you send yourself a message, I follow through. Self-trust increases confidence more reliably than praise does. When you repeatedly delay, you weaken self-trust. When you repeatedly act, you strengthen it. Confidence is not built by thinking. It is built by keeping small promises to yourself. There is also a time value to action. Opportunities decay, energy shifts, priorities change. What feels important today may feel distant next month. Acting now captures emotional clarity while it is strong. Delay allows doubt to negotiate. Immediate steps protect intention from overthinking. Small actions also expose hidden obstacles early. Instead of discovering problems after months of planning, you discover them after minutes of doing. Early friction is useful. It allows course correction before heavy investment. Quick starts create flexible paths. Importantly, small does not mean insignificant. Seeds are small, habits are small, daily choices are small, yet forests, lifestyles, and destinies grow from them. Scale is created by accumulation. 10 minutes a day becomes 60 hours a year. 1 page a day becomes a book. One conversation becomes a partnership. One decision becomes a new direction. People often wait for a perfect moment, but action creates better moments than waiting ever will. Starting messy today beats starting perfect someday. Movement creates clarity that thinking alone never produces. In practice, the rule is simple. Shrink the step, remove the excuse, start now. Send the message, write the outline, schedule the meeting, clear the desk, take the walk, record the idea. Small, immediate action is the bridge between intention and reality, between desire and change, between who you are and who you are becoming. People often believe that life changes only through massive events, dramatic decisions, or long periods of struggle, but sometimes transformation begins in a moment so small it almost feels ordinary. 5 quiet minutes of truth, 5 minutes of undistracted honesty, 5 minutes where you stop performing, stop escaping, stop justifying, and simply face what is real. Short moments of truth can create long-term redirection because truth clarifies faster than effort. Most lives are not off track because of lack of intelligence or ability. They drift because of unexamined assumptions, borrowed goals, suppressed feelings, and repeated avoidance. When truth is delayed, direction is distorted. When truth is faced, direction is corrected. Time is powerful, but clarity is more powerful per minute than confusion is per year. 5 minutes sounds small, but intensity matters more than duration. 5 fully present minutes without distraction, without denial, without storytelling, can reveal what years of busy living conceal. In such moments, people admit what they already know, but have not allowed themselves to say, this path is wrong, this habit is harmful, this relationship is draining, this dream is still alive, this fear is controlling me. Truth becomes transformative when it is specific, not vague discomfort, but clear recognition. Not something feels off, but I am saying yes where I mean no. Not I'm tired, but I am living against my values, not I'm stuck, but I I am afraid to take the first visible step. Precision turns of emotion into instruction. The reason these minutes matter so much is that truth reorganizes priorities instantly. When you clearly see reality, fake urgency loses power. Distractions weaken. Excuses sound thinner. You stop negotiating with what you know is misaligned. Inner clarity compresses decision time. What was postponed for years becomes actionable today. However, most people avoid truth moments through noise. Constant input, constant scrolling, constant talking, constant entertainment. These are not always relaxation tools. They are often avoidance tools. Silence invites truth. Noise protects illusion. To access those 5 minutes, you must create interruption. Turn things off, sit still, write freely, ask directly, listen patiently. Truth also creates emotional release. Carrying unspoken awareness is heavy. When you admit reality to yourself, pressure reduces. Even before circumstances change, honesty reduces inner conflict. Many people feel lighter not because problems disappeared, but because denial did. Another power of short truth moments is commitment reset. You can recommit instantly. You can decide in minutes to stop one behavior, to start one discipline, to have one necessary conversation, to draw one boundary. Action may take longer, but decision can happen now. Decision is the hinge. Behavior swings from it. 5 minutes of truth also reconnects you with agency. Instead of seeing yourself as trapped, you begin seeing choices again, maybe not unlimited choices, but real ones. Responsibility returns, and with responsibility comes power. You move from victim thinking to author thinking. You may not control every condition, but you influence your direction. Importantly, truth must be paired with compassion. Honest reflection is not self-attack, it is self-alignment. The goal is not guilt, it is guidance. When truth is harsh without compassion, people shut down. When truth is clear with compassion, people step forward. The tone of your inner voice affects the speed of your growth. These 5 minutes should be repeated regularly. Truth is not a one-time event. It is a maintenance practice, weekly reflection, daily check-ins, written honesty. These keep direction updated. Without review, drift returns. With review, alignment strengthens. History shows that turning points rarely look big while they are happening. A short conversation, a short realization, a short decision, these become lifetime pivots later. The scale is recognized afterward, not during. So never underestimate a brief, honest pause. Sit, ask, answer, right, decide. 5 minutes of truth can interrupt years of autopilot, dissolve layers of denial, and point you toward a more authentic path. A lifetime is not only changed by what you do for years, it is often changed by what you admit in minutes. A miserable life rarely changes through luck, sudden rescue, or perfect timing. It changes through awareness, honesty, alignment, and action. The journey from emotional heaviness to personal clarity does not begin with a giant leap. It begins with a quiet pause, a truthful question, a small step taken without delay. Transformation is not reserved for the extraordinary. It is available to the willing. Routine can hide dissatisfaction, but awareness exposes it. Honest self-questioning opens the door that denial keeps closed. Alignment restores energy that appearance alone can never provide. Small, immediate actions build momentum that endless planning never will. And 5 minutes of truth can redirect a direction that has been wrong for years. These are not motivational ideas. They are practical principles of inner change. Real change is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming more truthful about who you already are. It is about removing what is false, choosing what is aligned, and acting on what is known. You do not need to fix your entire life at once. You only need to stop lying to yourself and start moving step by step, choice by choice, day by day. The turning point is rarely loud. It is often a private decision, a written sentence, a spoken boundary, a started habit, a stopped excuse. Small inner shifts create large outer results over time. When truth meets action, direction changes. When direction changes, destiny follows. You don't need years to begin. You need a moment of courage. And sometimes that moment is only 5 minutes long, but its impact can last a lifetime.